longtime member, Dr. J.P. Sang. The topic this evening is all about ChatGPT. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Sang.
Thank you.
Can I be on the Okay, hello. Hello. I'm very, very excited to be here. This is a subject that I really love. Right, so what I plan to do is go through, so this is a web abstract. Skip this one, and I'll say a few words about myself so that you get an idea about where I'm coming from. Right. So as a short introduction. It has to be up here.
Details.
Hello. Sorry for the interruption. So I said this is a subject that I really love, and I say a few words about myself so you have an idea of where I'm coming from. So as a kid, I really loved math and physics, and this is absolutely what I wanted to do. And at some point in the lectures, I got a visit from my brother. He says, you have to do computer science because math is difficult to get a class. So I listened to my brother and made computer science. And in the class in the masters, there's something called, in the elective, called artificial intelligence. And I said, oh my God, this is so exciting. I have to do artificial intelligence. So I did the master's in artificial intelligence. And then after that, I thought that was not enough. Right? This is so much fun. So I went up to there was a professor in the guy, it's a big shot. And I went up to him and I said, you know, his name is Jean-Claude, that's happening in Grenoble. Jean-Claude, I want to do a PhD with you. And he looks at me and says, two questions for you. Number one, are you in the top threes in the school? Second one, if I say no, what will you do? I said, if you say, I said, look at him, I said, if it's no, I'm not doing any PhD. And he looked at me and said, wow, this guy's really cool, so I get happy. So that's how I did the PhD, and I met Jess. And I thought that would get picked out of it to see an actual PhD dissertation in French. So I brought a few for you. So you can have them around and take a look past the lamp. Thank you. And so there's two parts to the PhD. One is the dissertation in French. And the second one is to write the code. Right, you have to write some code, and at the time it was the expert system. So I write some code, and my lab sold the code to Mitsubishi. So I had the chance to fly to Tokyo and teach the Japanese engineers how to use my software. And then I went to visit Jess, who lives in Seoul, and that was in Tokyo. And then the software was sold to the equivalent of the French Java, the defense, and also we had some deals with United Technologies in Harvard. Right? So, and then I finished PhD. I was a researcher for 5 years. Really loved it. And then that same brother came back and told me, JP, you will be very poor. So I looked up what is the best business school I can go to. So I applied and I got lucky. I went to, it's called INSEAD. I went to INSEAD, and then a company hired me, and that was back in 1994. I came in the US, and this is what happened. Okay, so enough about me, so you get the perspective. And the code, by the way, was written in Lisp. Anyone knows Lisp here? Language of insipid and stupid parentheses. That's standard calculus. At the time, it was really, really cool to write code, and there's something called macro expansion. So what it is that you write code that when you click run the code will generate code, and it is the generated code that runs the program. And so in the lab, it was really fashionable to how cool you are to write macro expansion, and everyone was deep into that stuff. So really like this. Okay, so what I want to do is to kind of motivate the talk today. And then I would run 2 polls, right, to ask you what you think about. And I would need 2 volunteers, a man and a woman that can read, that has no eyesight problem. Who wants to read for me? Or do I have to designate some volunteers? Cool. You? Wonderful. Yes. A gentleman who wants to read? You look very excited over here.
I'm so excited.
Yes! Excellent. So the motivation is, look at this picture here. And it should look very familiar to you. And I think that you have much, much more in common than what you think. You are that person there. And this thing over there is called the Model T, right? And at that time, there was no electric car, fuel cell. Talks about self-driving car. This is way, way outside of what this gentleman over there can think, right? So the whole thing we can think about is the Model T. That's our next step. So there are 4 things that I want to, that motivates me to give, to talk with you. The first one, I think we're really at a turning point. We're living something really, really big. I don't think it's an exaggeration. I think it's really like the invention of the wheel. It is the internet. It is the fire. So something big is happening right now, right? And things are going to be very different from now. The second one, this ChatGPT that everyone's talking about, is truly, truly formidable, right? And at the time when I was doing my PhD, there was something called ELISA, back this guy from MIT that had written a piece of software, and it fooled a lot of psychologists, right? It's more about this was going on there. And actually the code was kind of floated around. The code is very simple, but it managed to fool a lot of people. And this ChatGPT is no ELISA, right? This is kind of the real deal, so to speak. And that's back 64, 66. I think it's a great time for us to reflect, right? It's a great, great time. What's happening? So I think it's easy to go in the Hollywoodian, dystopia kind of movies that we see, or we can be very level-headed, or be very naive about this thing, right? So I think that today we can reflect a little bit and see, try to find some middle ground and see the pros and cons. Hopefully I can do that a little bit with you today, right? And maybe I'm thinking more about Kevin here. Kevin says, oh, JP, how can is there investment opportunities we can have here? How can we make some good money here from this ChatGPT business, right? Generative AI. Theory is good, but money is better, right? So investment opportunities, learn a little bit about the new language, right? To maybe go on to Spanish or Korean or Japanese. You can write more beautifully, right? You can plan better trips. And you can become maybe smarter and more knowledgeable, all that stuff, right? Be more effective at doing what you do, and especially getting ready for the future. So let's start the conversation today, right? So today is only the beginning. And we won't have time to cover everything about ChatGPT, but hopefully we can get the conversation started, right? And I promise you that if we do that, we can get good things coming out of this, right? So let's pause and look at what happened in recent news, right? Creepy Microsoft Bing chatbot urges this guy to leave his wife and marry a chatbot. You heard about this, right? And 2 professors say they caught kids cheating in the exam, right? They're using ChatGPT, they're not writing this themselves, so that's not good, right? And there's this guy by the name of Jeff Hinton, and he says, you know, we're doing so many bad things here. I have to quit Google, and then I can speak freely, right? And then you get Elon Musk saying, no, this is going too fast, and we have to stop the research and take a break, right? And we've got other things like British Telecom saying they'll make 55,000 people by the end of the decade to get them replaced by ChatGPT, right? Italy has no, we don't want any ChatGPT, no, right? And there's a software guy that says, well, now things that used to take months, now it's going to take days to write, right? And there's a lot of people talking about the effectiveness of coding, and that's true, right? The coding is going to get easier. And I have a kid that said, oh, Dad, I had a bug, and I put in ChatGPT and fixed my bug. And kiddo is at Chicago. So basically, on the good side, it's the good, the bad, and then the ugly. I call it the oh my god, right? The good, the bad, and so what's good is faster coding. I mean, maybe not so good for people that code, right? The bad thing is all the job layoff. There was a lady that she could fool her bank and her parents in believing that it was her. Cheating on exams, and oh my god would be, we need to take a pause, we have to ban usage, Clinton speaking and quit your wife kind of stuff. Right? So let's take a candid look at what ChatGPT has achieved to date, right? So I have a long list and then maybe an eyesore, but I'll read the first one. The Law School of Management, right? It passed the test. Not beautifully, it's got a C+, right? Not very impressive. US medical licensing, 50 to 60% of mediocre student, but it passed. Stanford Medical School Clinical Reasoning, 70%. Business School Boston, a professor, Tiovich, came up with a few questions, and he did pretty well, right? He got a B minus. Biology, he got 95 plus, A plus. Gastroenterology, he did pretty well. Uniform bar exam, he passed, right? Wine steward, right? On background of the wine, on the brain. And he passed with 5 colors, right? SAT score that your kids are taking. 700 and 710, not bad at all, right? And GRE, 99%. This is impressive, right? And then USA biology, we got in the end, 19 percentile. AMC 10 and AMC 12 that you probably know if your kids do math. Not so great. And then AP, it's either 5 or 4, right? So, I mean, it's pretty good, right? I mean, okay. Time for a poll. Okay, on the one hand, you have godsend. This ChatGPT is the godsend, and the other side is Pandora's box. And as you remember, Pandora couldn't resist. You have to open the box. And all of the bad things of the world came out, including poop, right? So, show of hand. Godsend. Okay. Pandora's box. I think Pandora's box is. And then the no opinion? Not sure? So you're in the middle, right? Okay. Okay, cool. Very nice.
Only Chicago.
So let's dive into what is ChatGPT. Johnson, how much time do I have?
No, 7:15.
Okay, cool. So I want to take a few minutes to tell you about what is ChatGPT, right? So the first thing I want to tell you is very high level, and I'll show you something very exciting here. It understands and responds to a wide range of topics. When it says wide, it's really wide, right? And it's based on an architecture called generative pre-trained, the keyword being transformer. I'm going to say a few words about the transformer. It's been trained on a vast amount of internet data, and I'll go into that in a second. It's a huge success story. Look at it here if you want to learn about ChatGPT, right? It's not perfect, and the word that we use these days is called hallucinate. When you hallucinate, you talk with the conviction as if it were true, but what you're saying is BS, right? It was hallucination. It's been equipped to kind of remove the harmful language because the internet, there's a lot of bias in there. So when you learn from something that's biased, you can reproduce the bias. So there's kind of something to block it and say, no, you can't do that kind of stuff, right? It incorporates feedback and external audits to make sure that it behaves. When you hold a conversation with someone, it remembers up to 25,000 words that you talked about before. Right? So it understands context. So it's not kind of, oh, I forgot what you talked about, right? So it's good. And that got upgraded to about 8,000 words in ChatGPT 3.5, and now it's 25,000 words. And the ChatGPT 4.0 is the one that you have to pay for $20 a month, and it's way smaller than 3.5, which is the free one that basically took everyone by storm, right? And the competitor, as you heard about, is Bard. So, what is the key idea of ChatGPT? the key idea is sentence completion, right? So if you say, pull the rabbit out of the, what would you say, right? It could be hat, bob, story, mail, situation, whatever it is, right? So what the system does, it looks at many, many texts and then look at the most frequent one, right? So let's say, for the sake of conversation, it would be hat, right? So then you would complete hat and then you look for the next word. It could be a period, or you can have the word and it continues like this, right? So you have the choice. You can take the most common word, in which case the text tends to be a little stale or too predictable. So you can go and take the one which is less popular, but quite popular. And so the system will display more creativity. And it turns out that notion is referred to as temperature. And about an 80% temperature, where 100% would be highest stuff, right, would give a lot of creativity to the text. And one of the consequences of that is that when you run the text again, the prompt, it will give you a different answer. It has to do with what we call stochastic, right? It's a probabilistic choice of the word. So each time you run it, it may give you a different response. So how many words, how many documents are you training on, right? If we look at the Bible, King James Bible, 66 book, 1,100 pages, that's about 800,000 words, right? It's 4 megabytes of text, and that's big, right? If you look at Shakespeare, all the works of Shakespeare, it's about 4 megabytes, right? You look at Harry Potter, about 5 megabytes, right? You look at War and Peace, it's about 3 megabytes, right? Finally, not so long, right? If you look at, you take a book, the average book has about 100,000 words. And one word is made of about 5 to 6 letters, and each letter is a byte. So one book is approximately half a megabyte. This thing has been trained on 45 terabytes. So what that means, 45 terabytes, it's not only books, but articles and all kinds of stuff. But if we kind of just translate it into books so we understand a little bit what's going on, that would be 90 million books. I know you read a lot, how many books you read? Right? So this is amazing. You talk with someone that's read 90 million books. All the classics are there. Right? This is scary. I mean, look at this. I think I speak good French. I get into translators. Oh my God, French is pretty good. Right? It's amazing. So this is the size of the data that's in the brain. Right? So let's go to hallucination in a quick second, right? So we know the data from the internet is not perfect at all. And if we assume that everything is true, right? There's no bogus, everything is true. Look at the example here. The sun is bright, so assume this is true. And the sun is dark in a solar eclipse. Well, depending on how you do it, you can generate a sentence which is the sun is dark, right? You can chop it right there. Right? So you can see through that very simple example that two things that are true using the system of generation of the next word could lead to something completely false. Now, add to the fact that what you have is not always true. There's a lot of bogus half-truths and falsehoods in there. Little wonder that what you get would sometimes it would have speed. Right? So there's another thing I wanted to share with you is the new paradigm of coding. So normally when we have a task, we would write code for the task from the beginning to the end. And here the idea is, no. What we're going to do, it's like you want to do pull-up, right? We say instead of doing pull-up directly, we do conditioning. So you have a lot of conditioning, and then you can play basketball, you can play pull-up, you can do whatever you want, right? With relatively little training if you're kind of a good conditioning. That's exactly the idea. Right? So you have this part which is the pre-train with a huge database, like 45 terabytes. And then you have this what we call fine-tuning or transfer learning. And then you get to things such as, you can do sentiment analysis. Look at this text. Is it saying good, bad, angry, happy? What is it? Right? Image classification. Is that a dog? Is that a cat? That kind of stuff, right? question answering, name entity recognition, text summarization. With the long text, what the heck is this talking about? Poof! I want 50 words, right? Text summarization, speech recognition, right? So this is the new architecture. And by the way, kind of a historical note, when I was in my PhD at the time, actually my professor had this idea, not on the LLM, but the whole idea of having something which is, we call it general purpose at the time, general purpose which is the core, and then a special purpose. So to tell you that these ideas, they are great, but the ideas, we have the same ideas, right? Over and over again, it's the same ideas at all. And this fine-tuning paradigm works very well. You're good? So let's have some fun here. So this monster over there is called the Shoggoth, right? That comes from a novella, and the Shoggoth is a monster, right? It's got its legs and the shape-shifting, it's really bad, right? And the reason that we bring this up is that we can compare this to ChatGPT to some extent, right? So you have this business that generates not so great things, and then the mother looks at the kid here and says, you know, Shoggoth, where are your manners, right? You have to say please, you have to say thank you, you have to say may I, you have to say sorry. And just for the joke here is the Shoggoth replies that, you know, I have this video, I'm going to fool a lot of people, right? Mm-hmm. But this is exactly what's happening here. There's a layer over the Shoggoth that looks nice to you. I am an LLM AI model, I cannot do this, I cannot do that, right? But this is exactly what's happening. Okay, so you got the Shoggoth picture? Cool. So how the heck do we represent a word in the computer system, right? So there's a technique called embedding. So the idea is very simple. The idea is simple. You represent a word by a vector. A vector, as you remember, is many numbers, like a column, right? 1.5, 2.7, minus 0.4, and so on, like a column. So that describes the word. And this word would look at the co-occurrence of other words in the sentence it's used. So if you see the word pool, most probably that would be the word water somehow related to it, right? If you see the word water, you may not see pool at all, right? So you can understand that there's directionality to the connection, right? So one thing that they discovered in 2015, which I think is very interesting, I'm sharing with this slide, is that all of a sudden we have an algebra. So meaning that we can have the vector king minus the vector man plus the vector woman will give you the vector queen. Isn't that interesting? So you can do things such as Paris minus France plus Poland is Warsaw, right? So that open up and people get really excited. And what's more interesting, it's not true only in English. So you can do it in French, in Spanish, in Japanese, in Korean, and the whole thing sticks. Yeah, I have a little diagram on the vector, how it works, but this is in 2D. Normally this would be like 300D, right? You have 1D, 2D, 3D. When you have multiple D, ND, right? So that would be in n dimensions. But just for it's kind of tough to present something in n dimensions, so I show it in 2D here. Okay. You guys are good? You get it? Cool. So let's go to kind of one of the key ideas is the neural net. So what the heck is a neural net? So the neural net has an input layer, and it has the output layer, which is the answer. So to input whatever you want, pictures of cats, or you give it anything you want, some text in there, and then it has a function that's going to look at, it's got synapses that are connected, a bit like our brain, right? So it's going to be metaphor of the brain. And so the signals will come in from the neurons, and it has a weight of it, right? So 0.5 minus 0.2, and then the whole thing is added, and then it's compared to a function called an activation function, and then depending if you go lower or higher, it spits out 0 or 1, right? So that it travels to the next neuron. Our head basically, one neuron is going to do about 10,000 of the neurons, just so FYI, right? So those kind of in the middle is called a hidden layer, right? And so you show a picture, and then at the end you show it says cat. You say, no, that's a dog, right? And then there's a little adjustment to say you should have written a 1, not a 0. So we need, that's called the lapse, right? Between the predicted and the actual. And then there's an algorithm called the backpropagation that will go and go, let's change the weights, right? Maybe this weight here is 0.4, let's put 0.3 here, right? Minus 0.1, this one, let's change the weights around, and then you do it over and over again. And then it's, aha, you learn now, yes, this is a dog. Yes, this is a cat. That's in essence how this thing works, right? So you've got neurons, you've got synapses, you've got weights, you've got hidden layers, and we see the input and we see the output. We don't see. That's what has to do with the architecture, how you build this, right? So that's the key idea about the neural net. So there's been quite an evolution in the neural way. So you go back, yes, 1943, right? This is the whole thing started in 1943. It's a long time ago, right? And people were saying, oh, at the time it was the input and the output. And then some guys would say, yeah, maybe we need some hidden layers in there, right? So that gave rise to the multi-level perceptron, right? You have several layers in there. And then we started to say, oh, we need pictures. We need to understand pictures, cats and dogs, that kind of stuff. So came the structure of the convolutional neural network, called the CNN, right? And after that, we got interested in input that has a temporal nature to it. For example, a sentence, right? So something, or the stock bucket, right? Goes up and so you have time, right? So we are very interested in that. So we came up with this idea of, it's called RNN, right? Recurrent neural network. And then there was some breakthrough. One of them is LCM, right? Long short-term memory. It sounds weird, but this is correct. Long short-term memory. And what this thing does, there's one of the problems that we have. It uses gates. It's called vanishing gradient. So when you stop them, so the signal kind of gets weird when it's you have to make the layers. So that was kind of the major impediment for this kind of network. And then came the transformer. So the transformer changed everything. The transformer, we're talking 2017, that's 4 years ago. Well, yeah, 3 years ago. So, yeah. So this is kind of for your notes. I'm not going to go through that. So this is for you to read at home. So basically, what you need to remember, there are many things about the transformer, but basically 3 big ideas. The first one is the multi-head. Meaning that when it looks at a sentence, it can say this one is important. This one is not for everybody else. This one has to be connected to this one. So the huge intelligence right there in how you connect the words and to understand which one is important and which one is not. Filler words, there is all that kind of stuff. Not too much focus, and depending on the sentence. The second one is called the positional encoding. And previously we fed the words, take the rabbit out of the rabbit. So this time we want to go parallel. So we have to lose the sequentiality in the input. So we put the whole thing together, and now you have to remember number 1, number 2, number 3, number 4, number 5. Right? So that is a major shift in the architecture. That's our positional encoding. And the third one is the encoder-decoder. So you have, I'm speaking English, and it codes it in some internal representation, and I speak it out in French. So the first one is the encoder, the second one is the decoder. So this is a very iconic architecture. Anyone that plays with ChatGPT would recognize this, and then everyone talks about this paper called Attention is All We Need. And what this paper was tongue-in-cheek, right? They didn't know it would become that popular. Attention is All We Need. And this is a paper that's been cited as of last year 12,000 times. In this space, it's really big. So, of course, once you have the transformer, you have themes and deviations around this thing, right? One is ChatGPT, you read from the left to the right. Well, we don't have to read from the left to the right. We can read from the left to the right and from the right to the left. And actually, that's the BERT from Google. And what it does, it gives this the added value of understanding the sentence, because you know what's coming afterwards. So one of the problems that we have with ChatGPT doesn't understand the joke. And one of the reasons that we don't understand the joke, you need to understand the punchline, right? So you have to anticipate what's going on at the end. When you construct a joke, you know where you want to land, but this thing is already going forward. So that the joker kind of falls flat and lame. The other one, the T5, I just mentioned this one, is everything is translation. So if you're asking, translate this one in English to French would be great, and then is this text good or bad? So you can see the word good or bad as a translation in the sentiment space of what it is. So you can view many, many problems as a translation problem. and this is the T5 architecture, right? So this is a kind of variation around the theme of the transformer, which is a big deal now, right? This is what kind of makes the whole thing happen. You're good? So I want to share with you some kind of, you won't see that anywhere. So experimentation I've done with ChatGPT, and I want to share some of the results and reflections with you, right? So the first thing is, you want to get an account of ChatGPT, right? So you type openai.com/ChatGPT, you'll get this screen here. It changed about 2 weeks ago. And then there's something called sign up, right? You go sign up, please enter your email, your phone number, blah, blah, blah. And then you put it, poof, you get your account, it's free, you don't have to pay anything. Right? Good deal? Okay, cool. So of course I did that. And then we have two versions. One is the 3.5, and this is how it presents itself to my account, right? 3.5, which is a free version, and then the 4.0, which is the $20 a month, right? And now you can have a prompt, and you can start typing prompt. Who was my volunteer? Female volunteer? Very excited?
You right here.
You. Could you please come here? Get the microphone. Yes. Maybe you want to get closer to the screen a little bit. So what we want to do is to type something in the prompt and see what ChatGPT comes, right? What it comes up with. And a very nice ChatGPT has to kind of say thank you for coming here today, right? Okay, let's read this.
Greetings, illustrious members of the Michigan Shores Club. Amid the gentle whispers of Lake Michigan, a symphony of sophistication and elegance resonates within the walls of this esteemed institution. As you gather in the embrace of camaraderie and intellectual pursuits, the world marvels at your collective brilliance. Like the shimmering waves that dance upon the shore, your accomplishments and contributions sparkle with a radiance that captivates all who behold them. With utmost admiration, ChatGPT extends its greetings, celebrating the timeless legacy you share within the Michigan Shores Club. With profound respect and boundless creativity, ChatGPT.
Wow, if you guys are not impressed, you don't have a sword. Okay, yeah, isn't that good? I mean, this is very impressive, right? I just started that yesterday. Okay, so it's so good. Who's our next volunteer? Okay. So what we're going to do is we're going to type the sentence, right? And see, I was saying that, it's based on the temperature and all that good stuff. See if you generate something different. Okay. Yeah, my friend?
Yes, thank you. So much. It's good to be.
Hang on. Okay.
The same prompt, okay.
Same prompt. Yeah, same prompt.
Oh, esteemed and distinguished members of the illustrious Michigan Shores Club. As the sun dances upon Lake Michigan shores, let us celebrate your brilliance and grace. You are the guardians of elegance, the architects of refined camaraderie, and the custodians of intellectual eminence. Like a symphony of achievements, your presence orchestrates an opus of inspiration and distinction. Within this cherished haven, let laughter echo, ideas soar, and friendships bloom. On behalf of ChatGPT, I humbly salute your unwavering commitment to excellence. May your journey in the Michigan Shores Club be forever resplendent. With utmost admiration, ChatGPT.
Thank you. Yeah, now we should be fresh, right? I mean, this thing is done good.
Was that the premium version or?
That's you have to pay $20.
Yeah.
No, even the 3.5 is not bad. I mean, this is very impressive. Okay.
It was 3.5 globally.
It's very good. You won't be able to distinguish. No. It would flatter you as much as you want. Okay. So let's go to something called prompt engineering. What the heck is prompt engineering? So prompt engineering, the best way for you to remember that, think of the midwife. A good prompt engineer takes the baby out quickly, nicely, right? So the prompt engineer has to do with that is how do you ask those questions, right? Here, greet the distinguished and esteemed members. So depending on how you frame the question, you get different answers. And you can be very picky. You can be bossy as well, like what I am here. Say 80 words. I don't want more than 80 words. I want the tabular form. I want this, the tone of a very learned person, or I want to talk, whatever style I want. And you can ask for it, and it would deliver. So the prompt engineering is the art of crafting great prompts, right? It means you know a lot about this thing. And the more specific and skillfully crafted, the better is the response that you get, okay? And back in the days, I was a knowledge engineer when, after the PhD, I used to work on payloads for satellites, right? So design the payload for satellites. So I worked for 2-3 years with the satellite architects, right? So you have to design the payload. And also I did the same thing for shipbuilding, methaners, inathaners, cruise liners, and so on. And then we can have architects. I did that for 2 years. We done like once a month, and then you write the code, show the code, and then we touch it up. And that was a profession by itself, the knowledge engineer. And now it looks like it's the prompt engineer. Right? So I run a consulting company, and we work for pharmaceuticals. And one of the clients asked us, "Oh, JP, can you help us identify an SDOH vendor?" Right? SDOH is social determinant of health, right? So based on food scarcity, housing, area of deprivation index, vulnerability, access to transportation, do you have a high school diploma, or you a postgraduate, and how many traffic tickets you got, that kind of stuff, your credit score, your income, and you travel to the Bahamas. And so I used ChatGPT to say, yeah, let's see if ChatGPT is going to take that job away, right? So a couple of comments. It's great at generating a good list of vendors. I mean, you type it 50 vendors, right? And yes, 50 vendors, and you know nothing about the domain, right? You get 50, it's pretty good. So the analogy would be like fish and boots. You get lots of fish, but you get boots as well. And so yeah, the boots. And then the big fish that you wanted are not there, right? So quickly after that, you can see the shortcomings, right? You have prominent vendors that are not there, and then there's boots in there. You don't want them, right? And then when you dig it a little more, what it tells you is inaccurate. And the reason it's inaccurate is because it feeds off the web, and the web is not correct, right? Someone would go brag, or you have a feature and you don't want to kind of talk about it because there's something else you want to talk about. It will pick up on the second one and the first one, and you may infer that it doesn't have the first one, right? So you have to be very careful about the data that you with. So regurgitation of discrete data from the web. And one thing that we need to realize is there's no modeling of the truth. When you complete a sentence, there's no modeling of the truth. It's what people, 90 million books, this is how we send. But is that true or false? That does not appear in the system. No modeling of the truth. And so the conclusion, which basically I presented to the client, and the GIGO principle, right? Garbage in, garbage out. So if you garbage in, garbage out, the chatbot can only process what it is typing. It's not going to have extra intelligence. Say, no, this is crap, right? It would give it to you. And even at the quantity of 90 million books, it is incomplete, right? It's huge, 90 million books, not enough. No, not enough, okay? So in that case, it would be like a specialized ChatGPT, fine-tuning, transfer learning, the stuff I was talking about. And then now it won't happen in ChatGPT 5.0. I don't think it would happen, right? So here you have to have a specialized project to make it kind of intelligent for its users. The question is, who's going to invest in themselves? It's going to cost money, and then to complete this. So what's the play here, right? So most probably that's not going to happen. And by the way, I'm delivering this project next week. We found some cool guys. So a few examples, right? Example number one, I was a little kid, my dad says, hey kiddo, you take a triangle, you cut a corner, and then how many corners are left? 2. Think again. Okay. So we asked ChatGPT, I asked ChatGPT 3.5, and obviously the answer is 4. And it got it wrong. It rambles and it cannot solve it, right? So we asked the big brother, and the big brother, 4. Right? It understands when you chop off a corner of the triangle, it gets the answer right. Good? Okay, so what we can conclude from this little experiment I just ran here is that the big brother 4.0 is way smarter than little brother, right? And I run some other ones there, stuff that people do. You colony of bacteria with double every second. In 1 minute, it fills up a jar. How many seconds will have the jar, right? And ChatGPT 4.2 gets it right, little brother gets it wrong. Board falls in a pit and you have access to water, how to get the board out there? ChatGPT 3.5 struggles with it, ChatGPT 4 nails it, right? You remember those things about 5 gallons, 3 gallons, you want to get 4 gallons, you transfer the board and you move it around and all that good stuff? Well, ChatGPT 4.2 has absolutely no problem with that. 3.5 struggles, big excellence. You're good? Cool. So let's run more experiments. So you remember the stuff about the truth teller and the liar? So you get one person who's always, no, I don't know if it's you who's lying, but one of the two is lying and one's telling the truth, right? So you ask the question, where's the no, or where's the talk happening, right? Something like this. And everyone knows how to ask the question, what is the other guy saying, and then take the opposite of it, right? And so when you do that, ChatGPT 4.0, and I'm giving you ChatGPT 4.0, gets the answer right? Which is interesting, right? And then, just to make it a little harder, I put 4 people. 2 tell the truth and 2 lie. So can it solve the problem? And it cannot. It rambles and stuff. You can read the study, it's a little small, it rambles, but it cannot answer the question, right? So I'm going to ask 2 people what they say, ask this one what they say, and then I turn around this one what they say. In some cases it will not work, but that's difficult, right? That's basically what 4.2 says. And kind of the comment here is, we as human beings, we have no problem generalizing on this, right? So you know that plus multiply minus is minus, so you get that. That's the model that we use in our head. And now you tell me about 2 pluses, 2 minuses, simple, just multiply them and they get a plus, right? So you ask kind of sequentially. And we can all of a sudden solve for any configuration of truth tellers and liars without any problem right away. And this is not encoded in the system because the system works with the linguistic completion. So it doesn't grasp it at the high level of what we do, right? That's why it fails on this thing. So to make you reflect a little more, kind of a question, maybe a rhetorical question about Isaac, right? It took an Isaac to realize that the apple falling and the moon falling, the moon falls all the time. So the moon falls, because if it didn't fall, it would go in a straight line, right? It falls a little bit, it falls a little bit, it falls a little bit, and we call that an orbit, right? To realize that the apple falling and the rotation of the moon have to do with gravity. Do you think this is linguistic in nature? Not in terms of question, right? Do you think it's linguistic in nature, or is something deeper happening here? Yeah? So let's go and see what our other buddy is doing here. Albert says, what you guys call gravity is actually curvature of space-time. It's hard to, but it's space-time curvature. This is why the stuff falls. You call it gravity, but this is a geometry of space-time, right? So do you think that this realization is linguistic in nature, or it's way, way deeper? And by the way, this guy's not anybody, right? We don't have too many Alberts all the time. So, okay. So we, the common mortals, what do we have, right? Maybe most of them, when Newton comes up, Albert rarely, right? It's kind of people who don't come every day. And so the mere mortal that we are, is we have something called random word association, right? To boost creativity and ideation and stuff, we have this. So you can pick 2 words, like unicycle, right? You like the word unicycle? He likes the word unicycle. allergy, is that a planet, I don't know, right? Jupiter, and then you try to see any connection. So that forces your brain to go through some connections that you've never done before. And the question is, how far can you go with that? You know, that you're going to do 2 words and then you're going to another word, can you come up with some really, really brilliant idea? So that has to do with the whole theory about symbolic logic, right? So symbolic logic has to do with the premise that if you combine symbols and then you can come up with stuff, even if there's no real semantics to the combination of words that you have, right? So the point being here is, you know, how far do you think we can go just by playing with words? Do we need, like our body, something deeper here, like gravity or curvature of space, or we can just play with words? I'll let you ponder on this one. Okay, so next quiz for ChatGPT. You know about the theory of mind. So a little kid has theory of mind about 4 years. Coming soon, Kevin. And so the theory of mind is that the person who looks at something and then believes that what I believe is everyone believes the same thing, right? But people, when they grow a little older, they realize that's not true. And actually, little kids that lie early are smart kids. yeah, because they realize that what you know and what they know are different, and they're going to leverage that difference to fool you, right? That's a sign of a smart kid. So in this experiment, you have Alice and Bob, and for those of you who do physics, you recognize the 2 words here. And so you put out a dollar, and then you get Bob to walk away, and then you move the dollar into the box. Close the box, comes back, and you say, hey, where the little girl is going to put for the dollar, right? And if the little kid has no theory of mind, so she's going to tell you where she thinks is a small box, because she knows it's a small box, surely it's a small box, right? But if the kid has a theory of mind, says, last time Bob saw you was at the table, so he's going to go and go to the table. So does ChatGPT solve this correctly? Yes. Very interesting, right? Yes. The answer is yes. You can see the response of the prompt. And I think you got my style now. Let's make it a little more difficult, right? Let's add even there. So same deal. Now we got this thing, and I put in the box, I close away, I move it in the other box, I come back and ask a question, right? This is not in the literature of theory of mind. That's not, as far as I know. So now ChatGPT, which is based on kind of what's documented in the literature, hasn't seen this before, right? So it has trouble coming up with the answer. See, it's stuck, right? No theory of mind, it would be for box B, the second box for both Bob and Eve. The theory of mind to Bob, table for the Bob, and box A for Eve, right? Depending on the sequence of which they arrive. So that's kind of making the point that it's a linguistic intelligence, not an abstraction intelligence. So my observation here, it has a flimsy, it has some of the flimsy theory of mind, right? So ChatGPT can regurgitate what has been documented, but has not really digested what's theory of mind, really, right? Because that example just shows that it fails. And theory of mind is, in my mind, is a very big deal, right? I think it's truly the gateway to true intelligence, in my mind. If someone doesn't understand the theory of mind, you'll be socially miserable, right? You cannot call yourself intelligent if you don't understand how other people are thinking, and you brought up stuff that's really not good, right? So the theory of mind is kind of flimsy. Okay. You're good?
Yeah.
How much time?
Now it's, you have 5 minutes.
Oh no! Can you give me a little bit more? I'm very excited. Okay, so let's talk about implications and ramification. So ramification, the distinction I make between the 2 words, implication is what would be relatively obvious consequence. Ramification is things that you may not think of right away. But it is an indirect consequence, if you want, right? So that's the distinction I make between the 2. So there's a comment that's been said over and over again. This guy, I don't know if who knows Roy Amara here? An old guy? Okay, dead. We tend to overestimate the effect of a technology in the short run and underestimate the effect in the long run. And Bill Gates came up with something very similar, except that he put some numbers to it, right? We always overestimate the change that will occur in the next 2 years and underestimate the change that will occur in the next 10 years. And I think that's so much in the money in this state. It's absolutely true, right? So, one of the things that implication that would happen is the change in emphasis, right? The change would move from writing to editing, right? Because now you can produce some really nice without, look at the welcome that you got, right? This is really cool. And there would be things like, who's the audience? Is it well crafted, the right tone, get the message across, and the sections that need to be deleted or puffed up. You know, you get all those questions that the editor would ask. I mean, the writer, of course, the good writer asks all those questions, but it will come more to the fore than before. And this will, in my mind, really raise the bar of writing. I mean, you need to write better now. Sorry, ChatGPT can write, you can do better. Sorry, man, that's not your job. Out. The second thing is about the pressure to change the job. Any skills that you have in life, your height, your resilience, your intelligence, is distributed more or less following a Gaussian distribution. We call that a normal distribution. As you remember, with an average standard deviation, like IQ, the average is 100, standard deviation is 15, right? And you know, minus 15 plus 15 is about 68% of the population. So any trait that you have is distributed more or less normally, right? So if you look at, this is the task that you're doing, and AI does that very well. And you operate here. Well, I have this, sorry. Yeah, I forgot I had this. So here, if you're operating here, you're in trouble, because the AI is doing better than you, right? You have a lot of pressure to change that. If you're looking here, you still have pressure, and there was an article I didn't quote it in the stuff. There's a guy who writes pieces, and he got pressure, and he's a contractor, he's got jobs, and then all of a sudden, everything dried up. And he was complaining, he says, what I write is way better than ChatGPT. And the employee says, yes, but ChatGPT is free.
Yeah.
Right, so at this point, it's going to be, we accept lower quality, there's a trade-off between money and quality. Right, so the point of this thing is that even if you're here, you're not kind of out of the gate, right? There's still trouble. If you're here, then that's wonderful, right? If you're the left one, you need to go elsewhere. And you get lots of stress and hardship. If you're on the right, you're going to embrace AI, and actually it's fun. We're going to have lots of fun here. You're going to be more efficient, you can do things faster, and life is cool. Right? Depends on where you sit. Right?
Yes.
This guy, Andrew Ning, I don't know if you know him, he's a professor at Stanford. And my kid, our kid, Arthur, went to Stanford and had him as a teacher. and my professor was at Stanford. And we met the guy, he's a kind of fun guy. So AI won't replace you with someone that uses AI that will replace you. And that's profound as well. Okay, so what about retraining and job hopping, right? So as we saw here, you're sitting here and you need to get retrained, right, for a different skill set. Where you don't want to go is a place where AI will catch up with you real quick, right? You go to a place where far away, so become a plumber, right? If you're paralegal, become a plumber. Plumber's great, or nail polish, or massage, right? Or you go in healthcare aids, right? And that's not over because the robots are coming, right? But maybe not right away. Maybe in 5 years, 10 years, but for 5, 10 years you get the break, right? So this is, so your translator today, your paralegal, your private tutor, whatever you do here, poof, you need to be there and this thing is going to move to the right. It's moving, right? It's good, we have a good sense of humor in this program. Okay. Well, we're laughing at it, but there are lots of hardship there, right? I mean, you think about it, really. I mean, there's a lot of pain on that side, a lot of pain.
How many years do you think until we start seeing that?
2 years, we believe it's happening in 2 years, but it's happening this decade. And I saw several articles. There's a guy, I wrote that and I read an article, a guy who, I think like a computer guy or something like this, and he decided to be a plumber. He says, a plumber, if you work outside and you do something like plumber, AI will catch up with you right away. So he's gonna take the trace, no problem, right? And I'll tell you after we're done with the joke about the lawyer and plumber, right? So we're seeing a sea of projects to leverage transfer learning, fine-tuning, special parts like hospitality, coding, financial investment, right? Medical and healthcare. So let's look at some of the, let me go to the ramification, right? So things are, I believe, less obvious. What I told you before is pretty obvious, I believe. So this one, maybe it's obvious for some of you, then raise your hand as a JP, no, that's the implication. It's becoming increasingly more difficult to discern the truth from falsehood because of the deep fake. Right? You look at those images, Biden said something really, did he say that? No. Well, Putin didn't say something really good. Right? So it's becoming harder and harder for us to distinguish between this. And one of the things that will happen, you will be shaken at some point to wonder, why do you believe that something is really true? Maybe it's not true. Maybe you've been told it's true, but it's not true. Right? How do you know? At some point, you're going to ask yourself that question. Right? How do I know what I believe is true is indeed true? And that musing may be a little unsettling. Right? And ChatGPT is going to accelerate this. So, what if this thing gets in the hands of bad actors? Right? And so you get the bad guy here and the brilliant guy scientist doing great, writing great software. And the question is, in the wrong hands, it can be very easy for the bad actors to distort public opinion. Right? And it's happening. Indoctrinate people with half-truths and falsehoods to the intellectually vulnerable, and that would be children or adults that are not well educated. Right? They will fall prey to this kind of stuff, right? Indoctrination and conspiracy theory and all that stuff that we like, right? Kind of getting people excited. And then I think another one is there would be, in my mind, there would be two forces at play. One is the de-emphasis of the truth. So in my mind, if you see on the right science, I mean, if an engine or car is to work, I mean, you cannot fool that stuff. This is physics, right? You can say, no, it doesn't work like this, right? You Trump kind of stuff there, right? So either it works or it doesn't work, right? So you get on the right, the science, and the left, I want to put something like poetry. What's really important here is not the truth, it's the emotion that you spur in people, right? If you write beautiful music or beautiful poetry. So the emphasis is very different. And then I do politics somewhere in the middle, right? Political, propaganda and that kind of stuff, right? So one thing that would happen is the de-emphasis of the truth moving from science to poetry, political propaganda. And at the same time, there will be, in my mind, emergence of a bunch of fact-checking. What are you telling me? Is that true? Maybe it's bogus, right? So you'll go and check. Fact-checking, there will be services in my mind to establish the authenticity of the claims that are being put forward, or document evidence behind them. Right? So I see this as a burgeoning industry to say that, okay, this is true, this is not bogus. And then this is kind of on the sweet side, it would be the revival of the Roman nostalgia, right? And remember, mens sana in corpore sano. And all of a sudden, maybe you recognize yourself as the dream of the Roman, right? Of the patrician. It would be, we can live the life of the ideal Roman citizen, right? Without the guilt of slaves toiling for us, right? Because that's a machine, right? Who cares? We're happy. And then we can indulge in, live in villas in the countryside, like we might, to escape the noise and congestion of the city. We can enjoy fine dining here, lavish and exotic foods and fine wines. We can adorn ourselves with expensive jewelry, yes, and fashionable clothing. We can post it in theater, horse and chariot races, not too much, but we can find something like horse, remove the chariot part of it, right? Gladiatorial contests, maybe that's a kickboxing or AMA fighting. Engage in wrestling, you can go up to the palestra is where it's outdoor place where you can exercise, right? Over there, Gilson Pub, palestra. And we can take baths, right? Be knowledgeable in rhetoric, philosophy, history, be very proper people, right? The Renaissance man. and then follow intellectual pursuits with a pen. Right? That's our drill. So what's next? Let's ask the big guy at OpenAI. The big guy says ChatGPT is incredibly limited, but good enough at some things to create a misleading impression. Impression is the key word. Impression of greatness. It's a mistake to be relying on it for anything important right now. It's a preview of progress. We have lots of work to do on robustness and truthfulness. This is a big guy talking, right? And so I'll say two more things to you. So the obvious is that I don't think there's no coming back. There's no coming back. I mean, it's happening, right? And there's no slowing down either, right? Plugins. The plugins are the eyes and the ears. So you can view ChatGPT like an OS operating system or like a brain. And it needs to be connected to other things to be even more powerful, right? So who knows Wolfram Alpha? It's a big piece of software to compute map stuff. And now there's a connection in the API that connects ChatGPT with Wolfram Alpha. So if you can do some integrals, if Wolfram Alpha can do it, you probably can do it. This is really damn good. And then it would basically search the web for you, right? Go search the web and bring the summary. You have development of programs that's going to discern between human-generated and ChatGPT-generated text, right? There's one that's called zero GPT, right? It's not perfect accuracy, it's okay. Sometimes it would say, oh, this is a plagiarism, but no, I wrote it myself. No, right? So, and then improvements in LLM, large language models that ChatGPT spotted. Multiple advancement in succession as current players engage in one-upmanship. You can see that between Google and OpenAI. So you have this new stuff, we can analyze images, we can do all kinds of stuff, right? Breakthroughs in verticals, a slew of new businesses will pop up to offer services around coding, medical, healthcare, investment finance, just to mention this. But there are a lot of things are going to happen. More subtle. How to solve the fact that we'll be running out of good data. When we talk about GPU running out of good data, according to certain sources, we already use 10% of the data that's available to train the system. And you know, with each iteration, it's exponential. So very quickly, ChatGPT 5.4, there will be, what about 6.0? Sorry, there's no more data to train this thing on. And you believe that? How to incorporate the modeling of the truth in the part. Okay, yeah. We'll get a plugin to go and check the web, and we'll find some source and tell you what it is. So is that good enough? Do you think that being able to access the web will be a modeling of the truth? Well, I was wrong. There are projects happening right now in OpenAI WebGPT, and DeepMind is something called Sparrow that would go out and grab the data from the web. And will it be able to say, stop? Let's design an experiment like what we do in physics to settle the question. Here's the experiment we're going to run, right? So the day this thing comes, I'll be really scared, right? And this thing is true intelligence now, right? How to endow the model with the ability to conduct meta-reasoning. So meta-reasoning has to do with reasoning on the reasoning, right? The theory of mind. So you look at what you know as being the domain, and you sit on top of it, and you look at it, right? So this is kind of true intelligence in my mind. So I'll finish with this thing. We're running out of the data. Is there a silver lining to this, right? After all, we need to be optimistic, right? Is there a silver lining to running out of the data? So basically, the industry is taking there are many options, but let's get two of them. One is to train the system on the same data, right? So you didn't quite understand very well, I told you the first time. Here it is one more time for you, right? So you train it the second time on the same data that you've seen, and we hope through that the performance will get better. That's one possibility. Is it interesting? Yes, you got some results. There's a second one that's really intriguing to me. The second one is you get the system to generate an output. And then you say, system, ponder on your output and generate another output. It's like us, right? So the expression, roll your tongue 7 times before you talk, right? Oh, yes, right? And this thing, they tried it, right? They tried this thing. And there's a data set called GSM8K. This is like a math word problem here, 8,000. And instead of ChatGPT giving you the answer directly, you get the answer and you put the answer back in the system to reflect on what you said, right? And the performance increases for GSM8K from 74 to 81%, right? And there's another one called drop, and it moves from 78 to 83%. This is like a human being kind of think about what you do. Just say the first thing that comes to mind is shut up, think a little bit, and then talk. Seems like this is working. I mean, this is really, for me, this is mind-blowing, this thing. I mean, this thing can reflect. It would be like our researchers, right? The researcher would publish a paper, find some findings, and then stop and think about it. It's, I get a new idea now, right? And this idea would come from the things that the researcher himself or herself has found, right? Which is very interesting. That would solve the problem of new data. Because if you can generate the data and think on the new data and improve yourself, you can keep doing this thing. And maybe you discover the meaning of life. So let me take the poll one more time. Godsend versus Pandora's box. Godsend. Pandora's box. Who did change? Raise your hand. You change your mind. Which way did you change? Are you scared or you happy? You're excited?
Still in the middle.
Huh?
Excited.
Excited, okay. Godsend, right? Nervous? Okay. With that, I'll shut up. Thank you. Any questions you want? Yes? I think some people are ready, maybe we can do it after when people come.
The biggest problem I have is the frequency of what they euphemistically call hallucinations,
Yes.
which is out and out falsehoods. There was a story about a lawyer who did some research. It was
Yeah.
a case he said every